Good afternoon, and welcome back to the latest installment in What is a Game and How Do I Make One? I'm your clueless host, and I'm not actually sure what we're going to do today. Let's go have a look. So I think last time around we'd worked out how we're going to do our sprite mapping, right? So we've now gone, I guess the ladder we've got up, we could draw a single triangle, we could draw two triangles to make a square. We could apply a texture to that square. We've enabled blending, so we can do transparency on that square. We've got depth buffering, so we can draw multiple squares and they can overlap each other and make sense. Then what? And then we've added this ability so we can now draw multiple squares and overlap them on each other and have them all look different from each other, which allows us to do stuff like... come in here quickly and we go run.sh. Stuff like this, where we're drawing a square up here and we're putting an A on it, we're drawing a square down here and we're putting a blue thingy over it. So the next goal, I think, is to use that in a way that's more constructive. So this is still a little bit hard-coded, right? If I search for hard-coded even, like... you can see in here, we're hard coding in the data, but we're taking baby steps towards being able to do it in a more sort of programmatic way, which is useful and nice. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So we can rerun that and see both letters. Now, if you're one of the like 8 people that actually watched the last video and is watching this video, you might remember me talking a little bit about trying to set up I guess like a hierarchy where I would have sort of entities exist in a buffer somewhere to describe game objects. From them, I would create these drawables, is what I'm calling these, which I guess are kind of like a lower level towards sort of drawing primitives, describing like actually what do I want to put on the screen as opposed to like what exists in the game. And then we've got the logic that we implemented last time to take those drawables and generate the actual graphics primitives that need to be sent to the graphics card. I've thought about that a little bit more, and actually I think the game we're building is sort of static enough that I don't know that we need a kind of complex system of like storing entities, right? In the first instance, we're basically going to try and build Tetris, and then after we've got basically a working game of Tetris, we want to add the ability to edit a tile set. I haven't thought about how we do that at all yet, but I'm imagining what that means is actually we're kind of going to want like a game state, right? Like at most what you need to know is I am currently in the game is currently running, these are the pieces and their positions, and this is the one that's moving. I don't know that we need a kind of complex entities idea, right? So I think if you listen to other people, and maybe this is where listening to other people talk about their game engines kind of polluting my thinking a little bit, but the sort of place where you need entities is that, you know, you've got like NPC characters and they start following each other and they've got health and they've got inventories and there's a lot of state isn't the same every time that you need to track over prolonged periods. And I just don't think we have a lot of that. We're going to have a little bit of state that is like the grid and, you know, the current piece in its position. So I think what we're going to do is, instead of that whole entities idea, is basically we're going to have a game state, a function that's called something like, I don't know, draw game state, which will call once per frame, that takes the game state and it generates out this bunch of drawables into this drawables buffer, which is then copied over to our, what's it called, our GPU in draw frame. All right, so draw frame will be the actual like thing that sends all the commands across to the GPU to say, now go and actually render this frame. And this draw drawable is what we worked on last time, that takes our vertex buffer and generates out from it the the actual vertices we want to send, and our list of indices. All right, so we've got our 6 indices defining the 6 points that make up the 2 triangles that make up the quad. Which is to say, our README might want updating. I don't think that we're going to have this kind of list of entities. We're just going to have a game state. A draw function populates drawables buffer for game state. So that is something we are going to have to think about. I'm also going to drop this animated sprites thing, because I don't think it's hard. And we're going to do it later, I think. So I think at first we'll make everything very static, and then we can decide later if we want to have, like, I don't know, animations on different things. I do think I want to work on this drawing a string, though. So, I guess, in the interests of trying to make an actually watchable video, we draw what I'm about to say. I'm thinking the game state is going to have to include in it, should we use green? Some notion of which screen we're currently on. So I think in the first instance, we're going to have a menu screen that literally has a start button on it. Right? And we're going to then have a game screen which will have, like, let's say your Tetris thing in it. So there's all your Tetris pieces, and here's the one that's dropping, right? And when you click the start button, we will go to this screen, and maybe on pressing escape or something, we'll go back, right? And at that point, we're meaningfully rendering useful things and letting you interact, right? We're getting to the point where what we've done so far is really just drawing a picture. Right, we're drawing a picture, a static picture, thousands of times a second. We could feed in values to move that picture around over time, but like it's not interactive yet. So I think this is what I want to aim toward. And as part of that, we are very obviously going to need to know how to draw strings in positions, right? So what I'm imagining is we have game state, which has a mode on it or a screen on it, and that screen can be either menu or game, and perhaps at first game will literally just show like a countdown or something, or maybe some text. But the menu, we're going to want to be able to draw like a rectangle, and inside that rectangle we want to be able to write the word start, and we want that to be sensibly positioned like relative to both sides, and we want that to stay relatively sensibly positioned as you resize the screen. Right, there's a bit of thinking to do around that. So we still have this kind of entity to drawable to primitives idea. I think we're just going to do it in a really sort of linear and one-dimensional way. It will involve us being able to say, I want to now draw a string with these letters at this position. Yeah, so I think let's have a bit of a play at that. I think the goal for today is to have a drawString function which populates drawables with these values. Now, I guess there's some decisions to make in that. So one of them is, if I drag this down a bit, let's take string start. So we've got our text there, start. The way I've drawn my font means all of these are going to be the same width and same height. So actually we can calculate out, I guess, like the bounding box around this, just by knowing the number of characters in it. I think we'll just assume that's to be the case for now. Do we make that bottom corner our position? All right, so we have our kind of X, Y there, and then a width and a height. Or do we want to put it so it's the middle position? Because, why do we do that? I think being able to draw things centered is going to be useful. I don't actually think there's a huge deal of difference between those two cases. And actually, maybe this is a good time for us to do a bit of experimenting, because I think there are some questions I don't know. So we've got our screen at the minute. I think our screen coordinates are from 0 to 1. I'm pretty sure they go 0 to 1 like that. I can't remember which way 0 and 1 are on this axis. Which is probably a useful thing to go and play with and figure out. So we do that first, and then, like I say, I want to be able to do drawstring, foobar, pause, and probably actually dimensions to say how big we're going to draw it. And have that generate the drawables so that we make the thing. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. Right, so let's start, I guess, just experimenting slightly in our hard-coded data. If we have a single drawable, means binning off all this chunk in here, like so. So that should draw just the letter A, and it should do it there. I think if I do it at 0, 0, we should see that the corner is drawn in the middle of the screen. All right, now maybe it'll make more sense to actually do this override and make it black. Right, so hopefully that's kind of clear. So what we've got there is that corner's in the middle of the screen. These are all relative to the screen. So if I do like this. That didn't do what I expected. Okay. So yeah, our screen coordinates go from 0, 0. Sorry, the screen goes from -1 to 1. So yeah, so a width of 0.5 is actually a quarter of the screen width. So actually a height of 1 in both directions will make it, fill a quarter of the screen. Which is all slightly awkward. The other thing to say is, clearly looking at that, our axes, we're looking at this. I think they're starting the top left, so I think that's our positive Y direction, and this is our positive X direction. So if I take that to minus 0.5, I think we should move up, not down. So let's just check that. Yep, that looks right. Whereas this should move left rather than right. Just double check. Yep. Cool. So that's good to know. Override color, true or false. Cool. So, what do we want to do? Where should we put this draw thing? Just stick it in main for now. So we're in here, and I want to have a function that's like drawstring. Be a procedure. That takes, I don't know, some string value, which I'll just make ASCII for now, so it can all be U8. I can't imagine we're going to need UTF-8 encoded values. So drawstring is a proc that takes a string. Oh my god, what else do I say? A pos and a dim. It will return you nothing. Like so. Right. Given that, what do? We need to make drawables. Do we have something anywhere that keeps track of how many drawables have already been drawn? With drawables count. I guess somewhere toward the start of our drawing, we must be setting drawables count to 0 again. Or actually, no, I don't think we are, because we're currently just doing it all hard-coded, right? So, yeah, it's just that one loop that does the thing. So that is probably going to have to be different. Why is that not working? There we go. So maybe actually draw frame wants to change now. So we go to draw. What's going on? Query replace. I don't want to query replace all matches. I'm trying to search. What's going on? I'm very confused. Let me just close Emacs and try again. Have I done something weird? Let's go back to renderer. Yeah, incremental search. Or draw frame. And we're going to say draw frame. We'll draw drawables. And I think at this point we reset drawables count to 0. Right? So we're going to go through all our drawables and then kind of nullify them, right? We make them no longer real. The data's still there, but they're no longer going to be read. Which I think we could see if that did anything, because these will flash. I forgot. This means I need to go back and redo my file command. Didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because we aren't clearing the index buffer and vertex buffer. Interesting. Didn't think about that. Let's see. So draw frame. Right, does that make sense? So we're not clearing the buffers of data we send to the vertex buffer each frame. I guess it means we need to zero it out each time. Which is potentially time consuming and annoying. Alright, let's just do that really dumbly. So 0 out vertex data, so it's not the same all the time. Is there an easy way to say, like, set the values all to 0? Odin, set all values to 0. I don't know if there's like a syntactical trick to do that. Everything's 0 initialized. That helps me. Okay, let's just go ahead and say for every vertex in it's called vertex buffer can't do that. Set it to the 0 value. It's actually in a vertex. Clearly the 0 value counts as a nothing. Or if that means we're actually sending that as a value every time. Okay. So we do the same. And you actually can be set to 0 because you're just numbers. Go and check. And we can see. I'm not sure what we can see. See something. So we do all of that. Draw drawable. So we should get exactly one frame. So actually we can check that. Come in here, we go to here, we go and do a debug build, run render doc, and we capture the first frame. We should see that it did draw something, it just then cleared it. How do I see? Q capture on the first frame. There we go. So that seems good news. Actually, I'd be curious to know what's it clocking our frame rate at? How much have we slowed everything down? So still ludicrous fast. If anything, better because... Actually, no, it's not better, is it? I think a couple thousand frames per second is about where we were sat. So we're still going stupid fast, but it did take some time. And currently those buffers are relatively small, so that could get worse. So we solve that later if that becomes an issue. But this works for us for now. Right. So, with that done, we come back to our main file. Oh god, why do I suck at this so bad? I want to go to main.odin. Is it not the first one? Interesting. And right the way down to the bottom, drawString is a function that currently does nothing. What it should now be able to do is going to increment drawable count. Why is that a problem? Drawables count? It is called drawables count. So at the end of the function, we're going to increment the number of drawables. Oh, it doesn't go up by one though, does it? It goes up by one per character in the string. Except for spaces. So actually, yeah, that's not as simple as it sounds. So let's go ahead and say drawables count. We 0, and at the end, we take our global drawables count. Call this drawables added. That, we'll go ahead and do drawables added. We do that. The other side of this, currently we can do drawables indexed at drawables count to put the thing in the right place. This won't let that work. I guess we just do drawables count plus drawables added. That doesn't feel a bad way to do it. So I think it looks clearer to do it at the end. So drawables added is currently 0. We then want to say for each character in the string. We will say what if the character is a space, then we continue. Else, I think we're going to treat position as being the bottom left and dimension as being the full width that we want the string to be. So we're going to go from pos.x to pos.x plus width, pos.y plus pos.y plus dim.h. Might be useful to have a character width, which will be equal to dim. Are you going to end up being a float? Are these floats? I can't remember. Yes, okay, so that's good news. Character width, I'm going to go ahead and say explicitly it should be a float. It will be dim.width divided by the number of characters in our string. Why is that angry? Because you're not a float. Yeah, there we go. And then, if it's a space, we skip, so we just leave a bit of room for it. What are we going to then say? We need to make a drawable, right? Wait, I'm going to have to step away a minute. Don't be surprised if the time jumps. Okay, and I am back. What are we up to? Yeah, we're going to need a drawable. So let's go ahead and make a drawable, which is type drawable. Jump to that, find ourselves what goes in it. So if C is a space, we do this. C is not a space. Actually, didn't we make a thing? Oh my god, I'm blanking. What was it called? We do a grep for drawable. Do we have something like get drawable for character or something? Or save everything. Drawables. God damn it. Let's draw drawables. Oh no, I'm so annoyed. What did we do last time? Was it in the drawable function? Or was it in here maybe? Where do we put it? But we had a function that we used for getting... Ah, it was for getting texture data. Okay, I see. So we are actually going to have to do something like this. Back and look. Main.odin. Doesn't get it, is it? Might have to tweak that. That doesn't seem like the best way to do this. Right. So maybe we don't do that. And instead we just come in here and we'll say that drawables at drawables count plus drawables added will be equal to a drawable, which will be at pos.x plus, need an index, times character width. We're not going to handle any sort of like breaking of lines, so this will just be a fixed value of pos.y. Is it complaining because that's not a float? Everything else is? Yes. Z value is just whatever, because we're only drawing the one layer at the minute, so we don't have to worry about it. In fact, maybe that should go in here as well. So I'll have a dim, I'll have a Z F32. We'll just pass in here. Now its dimensions will be of character width and dimension height. Texture data, we'll just pass it into here. This will blow up if we pass in a bad value, but such is life. And we don't have to pass that in because we're not going to be using it. Although maybe that's still useful. Maybe we can black it out if we want to just see where the box is. So, drawables added is 0. We need that drawables added because we need to not count the spaces. Do that, we would then like to say drawables added plus equals 1. Right, then we go over to our init. Sorry, in our renderer. Init renderer. We're now going to take out all the hard-coded data. So all of this is now gone. And if this compiles, it shows nothing. Instead of that, we're now going to say inside of main.odin. Right, so we're now kind of... Oh my god, this is doing my head in. That one. Inside of this, The draw frame is the point we actually send it to the struggling. Maybe I should go back to Vim. Draw frame is the point we actually send it to the graphics card. In here, if I call it draw string, I think we only have capitals, so we're going to do hello world. We're going to put it at I don't know, minus 0.5 by 0, and it's going to have dimensions of width 1, height 0.5, z of 1. Why is it not like hello world? Cannot convert to thingy weight from untyped string. Oh, I thought it could. That's interesting. Okay, so it wants to take an actual string rather than that. Cannot assign value C to type rune. Oh. Right, so I think if I'm understanding right, what is that telling us? That so runes are a representation of UTF encoded characters, which means they can be between 1 and 4 bytes long, whereas U8s are just 1 byte, which is sufficient for doing ASCII characters, which is all we're doing. So actually, maybe we put that back. Maybe the right move is to cast it up here. So can we go cast to string U8? No, cannot cast. Is this where, is it called like transmute or something? Nope, cannot transmute. Why not? Can I do something in here? Say stir is equal to hello world. I'll be annoyed if this works. Ah, does it want to have the address of it? No? Can I do like that? Okay, let's go try this again then. Odin string to slice U8. Grapheme iterator. Iterating strings mainly decoding UTF-8. It is transmute. I actually know what transmute does. Take that. Can we transmute to string U8? Yes, that looks like it's worked. Hey! Very good. Can we go look in the Odin string, Odin language reference? What does transmute do as opposed to cast? Language reference. On overview or documentation? I actually don't know. Can we see? Transmute operator is a bit cast conversion between two types of the same size, akin to doing the following pointer cast manipulations. So if F is a 32-bit float 123, transmute U32F is like doing reference to F cast to a pointer to unsigned 32 dereferenced. However, transmute does not require taking the address of the value in question, which may not be possible for some expressions. Cool. Type reference. The cast operator can be used to do the same thing. It's useful in some contexts, but has the same semantic meaning. Okay. So if I came in here and I said cast, address of that. No? Okay. I don't know. This works though. It looks like transmute's intended for this kind of thing. It's a bit cast. So it just leaves all the bytes in place and it just gives you the thing. And what would cast do? I guess cast is a value change. So if you give it 1, I can give it -1 in a float. I can bit cast to -1 as an int, and they're represented differently. And it will do that conversion, whereas transmute just takes the same bytes and pretends that the value is what I've told it is, which you can do here because what it's getting is a... Does it know the length, though? I guess it knows the length of the string, yeah. Okay, let's just see if that works. In fact, we've seen that works. I know what I'm talking about. We can write a word. Beautiful. So our kind of core idea works. Do I want to turn the XY coordinates around so Y is going bottom to top? I don't know. It might be useful to just get used to the fact that up is down and down is up. But I would be lying if I said it didn't make my head hurt. I don't know. Let's do a commit though, because that's getting to a place where it's useful. And in fact, we can bin that, because we've made that work now. Drawable, we binned that, because we're kind of making that decision now. Main.odin. Ah, that's a question as well. Can I inline that? Alright, sorry, I keep getting distracted. Let's commit everything. And we'll say work in progress. So I'll say draw string function. That up, I'll have a sip of drink. We moved our string out into a value. We transmuted it. Can I actually do the address of constant like this? No. Can I do like this? No. What's the problem if I do that? Cannot take the pointer address of this, which is a constant. If I do this, do it like a slice. Now transmute untyped expression. Interesting. Getting into little wrinkles I've not to think about before. Okay. So that drawstring thing broadly works. Can we also do like a draw rect? And this will take advantage of the fact that we do this override color business, and we can what? Ew, I'm terrible for this. My head's like a sieve at the minute. We can pass in an override color, ignore the texture stuff, and just draw like a square in a given color, or a rectangle in a given color. I say draw rect, which takes in a color. We'll take in a pos and a dim and a z. And you, sir, we'll add a single drawable every time. So we can just say at the bottom of this, drawable count plus equals 1. Before we get there, though, we can do drawables count. Sorry, drawables at drawables. I might go through and make everything not capitalized because I'm just struggling to type anything. Alright, there we go. It is a drawable. It's got all of these fields in it. Except all the values need to be different. Pos is easy, because it can just be pos this time. Z is just Z. Dim is just dim. Texture data is literally anything. Override color is true, and we'll make you blue for now. And it sets drawables thing, and I should now be able to draw a rectangle behind my string. So if we come in here and we say draw rect. Oh, I should have passed color in rather than hard code it in there. Right, so we're doing that. Zip back up to nya. We pass in blue. We pass in a position, which I guess for ease we will currently just make the exact same as that. W is 1, H is 0.5. And to test my understanding, I'll first make the Z value 2. So I'm making it so Z's moving toward us, and they go from 0 to whatever. Ah, they might have had to be 0 to 1. This might not work. Yeah, so that doesn't work. So if we set that to 0.5, so we've got wiggle room either side of it. Set it to 1, I should get a blue rectangle. And we set it to 0, and I should get a blue rectangle underneath my text. And it all fits very snugly in a actually kind of fun looking way. That's nice. Okay. Let's add a nice grey constant. I don't know, can we just make everything 0.3? What's that colour going to look like? Let's go back to main, and we'll say this is going to be grey. Cool. So it's starting to look a little bit like a button. So we want to do something like this. Neat. What else do I want to do? I probably want to change my... Do I want to change my background color? So one option is we can just have a background color and we draw everything on top of it, or we could have a quad be our background quad that we just send each time. The background quad only makes sense if we're going to do some like non-trivial texture on it, which we might want to do eventually, but for now we can just set a background color that's more sensible. I'm not sure where I actually set that pink, but there's a clear color somewhere inside of all of this. And there it is. If we actually go ahead and say our clear value is going to be black, it'll be opaque. There we go. That's starting to look a bit like a thing. An ugly thing, but a thing nonetheless. Right, so, whoopsie daisy. Let's go back to here. Maybe now's the time. These definitely feel like they're in the wrong place, right? I'm going to forget that these live in main. They could go in drawable, because they're about drawing. Alright, they all just generate drawables at the end of the day. We go in font, smiley, and vertex. Vertex have anything interesting in it? Don't know. I think we move them to drawable. So let's go back to main, and we grab all of this out, and because of the nice directory-based package management, we can literally just copy paste it out. It's like nothing changed. That should all still compile. So we'll have all of our stuff that's like, you know, draw the thing. Although I do still think there's a bit of room for confusion in the fact draw frame does not want to live in there. I've confused my LSP, I think. There we go. Alright, I can easily see future me getting mixed up over the fact that draw rect and draw string are generating drawables, whereas draw frame is sending data to the graphics card. So I think it might make sense to do what? Can you do renames with the Odin LSP? Can I say render frame? And save all the things. And you can do the renames with the OLS server. That's fun. Okay. So we'll say render frame to make it clear. That's actually going to send a frame to the GPU. That then lives in renderer. These all live on drawable. That all seems nice and straightforward. Let's go ahead and make a tidying commit so we don't lose that when I inevitably mess something up. Cool. How late is it? It's not particularly late. We've got time. It might be time to start thinking about our game state then. Right. So we're at the point now where we've got, imagine this is our button. I want to be able to go click and have it do a thing. Which means we're going to need to have some sort of state to say, I'm currently on the menu, and when I click it, I want to go to not the menu. Right? So, and again, I think that doesn't want to live in main. I think main wants to be literally like, just run the thing. Let's sip my drink. It's interesting listening to yourself talk. You get to learn all the weird and horrible things you do. I find I'm popping my tongue, and I smack my lips, and I sniff horribly. I was trying to remember to sip my drink more often, so apologies. I guess thank you for sitting through it, if you if you've been tolerating it for the time being. What was I doing then? So let's go ahead. Game.odin? GameState.odin? Game.odin. We'll live in package main. What do we have then? So we're going to have ourselves a game, which will be a struct, which will have on it a screen, which will be a screen, where a screen will be an enum with values menu and game. I guess game. Do we imagine there being state that is persisted between screens? Maybe. The one option is to make that be a union. Well, I guess it wouldn't look like this, right? You'd have a union of game that contained maybe a union state that contained like menu state and game state, and then depending on which screen you were on, we would have different states. But it means if we went from the game to the menu, we would lose the existing game state. Let me just call that main menu, because we're going to probably end up with like a pause menu as well. I think for now, we just keep it all in one big struct. It shouldn't be that big, if we're frank, right? We just have things like ending a game nulls out the state, or starting a new game will re-up all the state that it needs. Is it useful to have a function that makes a new game, and it will just go ahead and say screen equals main menu. So I'm starting the game. We make you a new thing. It goes like that. Main.odin. Back in yar. I'm going to say instead of all of this business. I guess it can go up here. So done it the other way around, haven't I? Let's do it the same way we did the other one. So init game. And again, we've used our workspace. That makes the game. I guess here, can we do draw game? A function that takes in the game. Does that work for us? Maybe? If we go ahead and have a switch on game screen, we can say case menu draw menu. Is that not how you do it? Ugh, how do you do this? Unhandled cases, undeclared name menu for type screen. That doesn't sound right, does it? Meant to look like that? Yeah, I thought so. Do these then have squigglies? And it wants to have another case for... it's because menu's not called menu, it's called main menu. And this game to do. Whereas many we go panic unimplemented. So we're in there, and then we can go ahead and say that draw menu can be a proc, and it can do what we're currently doing in here. Yoink all of that out of there and stick it all in there. So now not drawing anything. Come back to here. And again, so imagine an update game state. So our game logic sits in here. We then go ahead and say draw game for game. It's not expected to change any of the values in game, so I don't think it needs to be a pointer. Let me do that. Then you can imagine that basically what we're going to end up with is a big old draw game function that explains how to set everything out. That feels like another sane little point. So right. One thing to say about this is that it gives us very little control in terms of we can't draw a square. Right, because if I come in here and I do this, I can drag this back and forth. Right, so if at this resolution, say, a single pixel would be a square, it certainly isn't at this resolution, right? So actually, passing everything around as floats that are that map directly onto our screen coordinates might not be the best way to do this. Maybe I need to have a bit of a think. We grab another color. We keep going. I'm quite enjoying this little like drawing pad thingy. What we've currently got is our kind of screen coordinates. We've done a bit of checking. They go from -1, +1, that direction, and in this direction. And that defines our screen space that we're going to actually draw onto. This is what drawables and I guess I'll call like GPU primitives refer to. I think that works fine. I do kind of think, though, it might make more sense for our game. What would make more sense? So thinking that in the future, we're going to want to be able to draw a grid onto our game. Like so, for us to play Tetris on. And we're expecting each of these to be actually square. So what's the best way to handle that then? Something somewhere has the like actual width and height of the window that we're playing within. I think that currently lives on the renderer, but that could be pulled out to be global if it needed to be. Called surface extent. Oopsie daisy, can we go grab surface extent? Yeah, it gets set in a bunch of places. One of these, I think, will be called potentially indirectly by our handle screen size change type logic. Yeah, so when the screen size changes, we have to create a new swap chain. When we create a new swap chain, as part of that, we go and get this new surface extent. So we could make that just global if the rest of our logic needs to know about it. Does the rest of our logic need to know about it? If I want to be able to draw a square, I know my width and my height. I guess. I actually don't know what to do with that. So in that Brackeys program that I've done before, show it quickly because I'm always conscious with these. I'm not exactly a big deal. There's a good chance people won't have seen these other videos. But if I go in here and I run Brackeys, this has the same problem, right? That as I resize the screen, I don't want to be smushing and stretching all my sprites around. I want to be able to, oops. Sorry, the noise is loud and the collision detection sucks, but the squares are square. What I was going to say. But it's also not very like controlled, right? I never have a thing where I'm like, I want to be able to draw a panel to the side that is a fixed width, and then the rest of the screen is kind of adapting in size. So this was a simpler problem, I think. And I think all I did for this was I chose one dimension to be our kind of like proper dimension. I guess looking at the way this behaves our width, you can see like our guy is always just centered in the center of the screen. And then the screen is a certain number of these wide. So, I don't know, what does it look like? Maybe 20? 15 maybe? Must be an odd number, I guess, because it looks like one would fit in the middle of the screen. No, that's nonsense reasoning. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's some number that I will set for how many of these fit across the screen, and then if I make it this way around, yeah, so you can tell that it's being done on the width. So I've got a set number of things that fit across the screen. Then from that, I've worked out what I need to do to make the height look the same. So one option is to go and look at what Brackeys did. There's one problem. I'm not even really sure what the ask is going to be, though. Right, I'm not really sure like what the plan with this will look like. Maybe one thing to say. So, this one thing. Does GLFW let us set a minimum screen size? And then we could sort of design our UI around that, so we can make it so these buttons are always the minimum screen width by the minimum screen height or something. Or what we'll know ahead of time how many buttons we need to show. So we make sure all the buttons fit in the minimum screen height, they're all the minimum screen width, and then we just need to do positioning to get it to the middle. So I guess what I was originally thinking we could do is we could say our game is defined in units that go from 0 to 1 that way and 0 to 1 that way. But that still doesn't give us that nice thing where like 1 by 1 would be square, because like it isn't, right? So maybe actually what we do is we go 0 to H this way and 0 to W that way. And we use the actual pixel counts. Because the thing that's nice with that then is that something that's 4 by 4 will be square. It will just map to something that's not square sounding in the screen coordinates, but when we draw it out, it will look square. I'll be honest, I think I might need to mull this over off video a little bit, because I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. But I do think that minimum screen size, I think it's probably interesting for us to know. Right, we can probably go look that up now. Have a look. GLFW, minimum window size. See, does Stack Overflow have us? We love a 10-year-old Stack Overflow. Title explains everything. I'm using GLFW. I want to keep the window width from going below some amount. There was a feature request for it back in the past. Set window size limits. Size limits of the content area. If the window is full screen, the size limits only take effect once it's made windowed. If the window is not resizable, the function does nothing. Applied immediately to a windowed mode window and may cause it to be resized. Okay, so maybe we just want to do that real quick. Yeah, spin that off there. We're going to do this straight away. Where's our window live? We go ahead and say min window width and min window height. I'm going to pick these numbers pretty arbitrarily at first, but you get the idea. Actually, it's kind of hard to test in. Let's go ahead and make them the same. Because of my annoying setup, well, I say annoying, I like it for programming, but the awesome window manager stuff obviously means it'll snap to like the size that the window manager wants to make it. Go to make it. So, hey ho. Where are you used, sir? Down here. Great window which lives in silomain.odin. If it fails to get created, we bail. What was the function called? Set window size. So we can come in here, GLFW set window. Oh, you can fix the aspect ratio. I don't think we can count on that though. So I haven't done anything to make full size or full screen work yet, but I would like to make full screen work eventually. And obviously at full screen, we don't control the aspect ratio anymore. So I think it probably does make sense to instead say we care about supporting kind of arbitrary sizes, but we don't support arbitrarily small. We can kind of say it has to be within reason.
Right, what's our window handle? It's GC, which is our global context window. Are you a pointer? You're a binding window handle, which I think is a pointer. And then you, sir, are min width and min height. We go ahead and do that. And we make you a floating window now. And it's popped it off the screen. That's not helpful. I wish you didn't do that. You do that every time. What a pain. flawless dev setup. That. Good job. Does it do that in all layouts? Can I do something like put you on top and then make it floating? No, I'm just going to do it every time. Okay. Well, that's a pain. I test it like this. Okay. Well, certainly in windowed mode, it doesn't seem to have done anything. Set a minimum width? No. I've set window size, not set that minimum. Size limits. Which now complains. Max width of some parameter. What do you take? You take a window handle. Min width, min height. Max width, max height. I don't know if there's an option to be like, I don't want to set these. If it were me, I'd make it so if it was negative. Hey! Okay, that does look like it worked. We very big. Can't make it any smaller. Very cool. Okay, that seems useful. I don't know what the right values to make that will be. Let me just go have a quick look. Is making it negative a reasonable thing to do? Maximum width or GLFW don't care. What's the value of GLFW don't care? GLFW don't care is a value of 1. Interesting. Well, that seems more sane to do. Something like that. So you can resize it that way. Resize it that way. Curious that it didn't pop into space there. I wonder if it just didn't think it would fit or something. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. I think jank around the tiling window manager behavior is kind of on my end for using a weird dev setup and then trying to run the game in it. That's probably something, as we get a bit deeper into this, we might have to start caring about. But for our current purposes, I think that's fine. I think that was a useful find. I'm going to have a think off stream. I think that coordinates question is interesting. I'm leaning right now towards saying that our game logic. Maybe our game logic doesn't need to care about it at all. Right, because our game logic can just work in terms of like the grid size and the order of things. And then it's just in our drawing logic that we need to care about laying it out. Which maybe means drawables should be in terms of absolute pixel positions. That's an interesting thought. Should drawables be in units of actual pixels instead of -1 to +1 screen coordinates, so we can make squares actually square. Should drawables be in units of actual pixels instead of -1 to +1 screen coordinates so we can draw actually squares? Should we... the y-axis. So it's 0 increasing from bottom to top. Make it simpler to reason about as well. Right, I think... what does it say? Game state and a draw function that populates. Yeah, so we've looked at that. I think that might be a worthwhile refactor. Like I say, we currently can't draw squares, which is going to be an issue when we come to draw our actual grid. And we'll be able to know, when we come to draw the thing, what the current screen size is, so we can do a bit of logic to say, like, actually, if my screen's wide enough, I have a panel to the right, it has a fixed width, or maybe its width adjusts so that we can get as big a possible square thing or a desired aspect ratio thing for our Tetris board. And then it makes itself like a size that makes sense. Maybe it has a minimum width, right? I can imagine that gets... that sounds like it could get quite confusing as well. But that core problem that I want to be able to draw my Tetris pieces out of actual squares, I think is easier to deal with if we work in kind of pixel values when we come to drawing than it is in screen coordinates. And the 0 to 1 bottom to top coordinates, I think, will just make life easier for me reasoning about things. So I think maybe that's next stream, is we'll come back and either I'll change my mind again. I am on a bit of I've on a bit of a roll for changing my mind about things. So I'll mull that over a little bit and decide what I want to do. But I mean, we've been going for what, an hour? You know, it's a working week, it's a working day, so I can't really stay on super late. So maybe it's not even a bad thing to end a little bit early. Cool. I think it's starting to get a little exciting. We're starting to do things. And once we've got this kind of basic layout stuff working, we can work on how we respond to clicks and button presses. And then we can actually write Tetris. It'll only take them, what, like 30 hours? Woohoo. Okay, I'm just rambling now. I will catch you on the next one and let you know if I've changed my mind about everything again. Cool. Have a good one.